As the calculus for the upcoming election, the upcoming presidential election, is discussed and debated over and over again, we're going back to the same false narrative. I mean, it's true in the context of what's in the Constitution, but it's false in the context of reality and what makes sense. That everybody's concerned about this state or that state and how this or that state is going to go. And people are very quick to say that Hillary Clinton lost the last election. The United States is the only country in the world where you can win, have a lead of 2.9 million votes, almost 3 million votes, and be declared the one who lost, and the person who actually lost get the keys to the White House. Where else does that happen besides here? And they want to hold that out as some sort of special construct, special feature in our Constitution that should be honored. And we're great. We're number one. It's good we do things this way. People, that's okey-doke. That's nonsense. I want to read to you from chapter 6 in my book, Stop Falling for the Okeydoke, How the Lie of Race Continues to Undermine Our Country. And I want to read from chapter 6, beginning at page 111, going to page 112. I have two brief comments on the Electoral College. In a country that holds itself to be the exemplar of the principle of one person, one vote, how can a presidential candidate receive 35%, 40%, 45%, or even 49.9% of the vote in a state and receive no electoral votes? Essentially, if your candidate didn't win your state, your voice and your vote don't count. They should at least pretend the votes of the people matter and allocate the electoral votes proportionally to the actual votes of the voters. Constitutional architect and slave owner James Madison himself stated these words about the creation of an electoral college. Quote, "There was one difficulty of a serious nature, however, attending an immediate choice by the people. The right of suffrage was much more divisive in the North rather than the Southern states, and the latter could have no influence in the election on the score of Negroes, the enslaved Africans. The substitution of electors obviated this difficulty and seemed on the whole to be liable to the fewest objections. In a nutshell, we got stuck with the Electoral College in the latter portion of the 1700s, the 18th century, going on 3 centuries ago, as a compromise as a result of America's birth defect of slavery. I hardly think we still need to be saddled by that slavery-era institution in the 21st century. We must stop living the lie. We must stop feeding the beast. We must stop falling for the okey-doke." Understand a few things about the Electoral College. Number one, if you are a person who gets the keys to the White House but did not earn even a plurality or majority of the vote, then you do not enjoy the consent of the governed. I suppose you can earn it if you govern with decency and with integrity. Obviously, that's not what happened after 2016. But the fact of the matter is that people want their votes to count, and one of the reasons they don't feel they count is because, if you're in a state where 45, 46, 48% of the vote goes one way, 51% goes another way, that your 48%, which is almost half the state, doesn't count. And if the other person won by a majority of one or plurality of one vote, all the electoral votes, winner take all, that ain't democracy. That's not reasonable. And every time the Electoral College has gone contrary to the votes of the people, bad things have happened. 1876, Hayes versus Tilden. Tilden won a majority of the votes. The Hayes-Tilden Compromise takes place in the House of Representatives. Part of the rationale there was Southern states said, well, we'll give our support to whoever will get these Reconstruction Union troops out of the South. That compromise is agreed to. Reconstruction troops come out of the South. White citizens' councils, Ku Klux Klan, etc. Terrorism in the United States then becomes order of the day, lynchings by the thousands over the course of that next century. And then only in the 1960s, with the passage of the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, and then the Voting Rights Act, did we begin to claim some of the rights that we were supposed to have had as a result of the civil rights amendments of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. So that happened in that election. 2000, Al Gore didn't win by a whole lot, but he won by over 100,000 votes. But something squirrely happened in the state of Florida, a state that was declared for him. All of a sudden, it wasn't, and then he allegedly lost. And so again, a person who did not get the majority or plurality of the votes gets the keys, and he gets in. George W. Bush. Now, George W. Bush has shown himself to be a conscientious and decent person in his retirement as a former president, and trying to show some Republicans the way. Say, hey, remember how we used to do it over here. But as a president, did any bad things happen as a result of his being installed in the office by the Electoral College? Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's right. We invaded a country that didn't attack us, cost over 4,000 American lives. We spent over $1 trillion. We destabilized an entire region of the planet that helped to give birth to Al Qaeda and the Islamic State and all of that bad madness and badness that's happened since then. And oh, that's right, we also crashed the economy. Tax cuts, not replacing the revenue, spending over $1 trillion on our war machine. Dr. King told us back in the 60s that there are 3 isms that would potentially kill this democracy and bring this country to its knees: materialism, capitalism, and militarism. We see those happening today. Capitalism right now is rearing its ugly head to the extent that, hey, we know there's a pandemic going on, but we need to open up the economy. We need to open up the country. Everybody go back to work and just do the best you can. We need you essential workers. We don't want to pay you a living wage, so you have to have 2 or 3 jobs because nobody will give you health insurance in one job, so you still don't have it, or you have it through the Affordable Care Act that the Republicans have been trying to take away since it was passed by President Obama back in 2010 or so. What is this? And then 2016, and we know what a stinking hot mess this has been. So, eventually, we as the people of this country, if we really want our voices to count, need to come for our members of Congress and say, look, this is some nonsense from the 18th century. They put it in the Constitution so that they could get it approved by the people who are participating, because they had the slave-holding states, and they had to figure out a way for slave-holding state votes to count without factoring in all of the people that they had enslaved there, and thus the whole 3/5 of a person thing. If that's what you needed to do in the 1780s and early 1790s to establish the country, it stank then, it stinks more now. My grandmother used to say, you know, enough is enough and too much smells. Well, this is really smelling now. But clearly, after the Civil War was over in 1865, they should have done away with it then. And how much better off would this country be had they done so? Be that as it may, we're still saddled with it now, and that's something that we need to bring to an end. It will not diminish our democracy at all. In fact, it will enhance it, and it will compel each party. And God forbid that we have a third or fourth party come on the scene. Please come on the scene, because the Democrats and Republicans are 2 sides of the same coin. Frankly, my dad used to say the main difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is that the Democrats will usually kiss you first. But the more parties, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But we can't have everything narrowed down to this 2-dimensional nonsense where people are battling for winner take all to the detriment of we the people. That's all I have to say on this matter. God bless you. Have a blessed day.